12 to 8 on RSN Breakfast. Adam White in the studio with our very special guest, Nick Dal Santo. Nick, just before the break, I read a text from Macca in Shepparton, and he's texted again during the break saying you forgot to mention that you get to sing the best song in the AFL when you join Richmond. So what do you think of Macca's little proposal? They're trying to draw you across the Tiger
I
Land.
appreciate that, Macca, and I do agree. I actually do have the best song. Being a St Kilda man, I actually do enjoy listening to that one at the MCG after they normally beat us actually the last few years. But I wouldn't think so. They've had a fantastic year, and I don't think they need anyone like me at their club to be successful.
Whitey, lots of talk, of course, about North Melbourne with Nick. What do you think's going to happen?
Well, we may as well ask the man himself. It's unique circumstances for you, Nick, because obviously St Kilda, as we've been saying, has played a lot of finals of footy. They're going through a rebuild. You're a senior player. How are you coping with all of this?
It's the first time I've been through it. It's not the first time I've seen it happen. I understand the process and been around long enough to see players come and go. In regards to my actual contract, I'm not a free agent, and I can't just walk out. For example, like BJ did last year and went to Essendon. The clause in my contract was if I'm physically able to play football and the doctors tick it off post the last game, which was last week for us, that I have a contract that gets activated pretty much straight away, is my understanding. So I assume that that's the process right now. So I'm right to play football, and I would assume that contract will continue. Within that, it's obviously difficult to get your name mentioned and bandied about a little bit with trades. Earlier on this year, it got brought up, I think about round 5 or 6, and I've had a really slow start to the year. So I understand why people are asking questions. Is Dal happy? Does Dal want to be there? Where's the club heading? So I understand all those sort of things. It's very similar to when I first got to St Kilda, that we weren't very successful, and I was that young kid that was getting those opportunities to play games, potentially in front of some older guys that might have actually deserved the spot in front of me. So it's difficult. No one really wants to hear their name. You're not wanted. It is not a nice thing. But within that, you understand the business. I've learnt this year about what can happen and the possibilities. So whatever happens in the next month, I just want to be prepared for. And I had a really good chat to the club last week, and I'm hoping that it goes forward from there.
So on the back of that, then, Nick, the question is, have you had that medical?
Yeah, I had my medical last week, which I have every year. That's
so
an
that's all
thing.
clear?
Yep. So I had that done last Tuesday.
So is that your doctor or the club doctor?
That's the club doctor.
So
who I trust. The club doctor's a good bloke. So
they've agreed in principle that you passed the medical, so
yes.
that will activate that clause.
Yes, correct.
So the question then has to be asked, will you stay a Saint?
I would love to stay a Saint. Within that, I understand from the club perspective, and that my name's been mentioned with trade, and I haven't spoken to any clubs, but within that, if the club feel that they need to go in a new direction, and I think it's actually important to go in a new direction with the young kids, and I think we had 18 first years or something along those lines this year, which is amazing. That if that's the direction they want to go, then I can actually understand from their perspective if they feel like I'm not a part of that.
The time has elapsed since your last game, and as we know with the AFL landscape right now, you have player interviews with your coaching staff.
Yes.
Mainly Scott Waters.
Yes.
Was there a glowing report there that he wants you to be a part of St Kilda's landscape next year and beyond?
Yeah, we spoke about my role next year at the football club, and it included Dean Laley, our midfield coach, and they do a quick summary of your year, and they obviously show what they thought worked, what you need to improve on in the off season, and a direction next year. So we spoke about a few things, and without going into it too deeply, there was talk of next year and what sort of role that I'd play at the club.
We don't want to sort of bog down in this discussion, Nick, but you've been very consistent the whole way through this year that you've enjoyed your role and you enjoy that sort of mentorship that you've spoken about previously with what happened to you with Nathan Burke and Robert Harvey, etc. But I guess it's your chance to sort of clear it up that you were happy, or were you happy at St Kilda this year playing that role, accepting of the possible change in your role?
I actually really enjoyed the Monday to Friday at St Kilda this year. The weekends are obviously difficult when we're losing games, and that's all part of it. But in actually dealing with younger guys, I really enjoyed that role, and I felt like I'd learned a lot when that was me, and I knew how it felt when a senior player would come and speak to you and say, keep your head up, or let's work through this, or they're playing seconds. What do you need to do to get a game? And there was opportunity for them to play senior footy, so it actually probably made it a little bit easier as a senior player to get around the younger guys. And within that, I've loved it. I loved it when I was a kid, to learn from the likes of Aaron Hamill, Robert Harvey, Berkey, Lowy, all these sort of blokes. But I hope that I could have passed that on a little bit this year, so when the young guys are a bit older, say 5 years time, they go, that was nice of Dal to have a chat to us.
Can I ask about Brendan Goddard? You mentioned there, of course, he left for Essendon last year. How, as a close teammate and someone who'd gone through a lot together with you and him, I mean, how difficult was that for you? And did you get an insight as to how difficult it was for him in terms of making that decision?
Yeah, I was shocked when it actually happened. I mean, it's probably a similar situation. There's been a lot of talk of BJ leaving. I never asked him throughout that whole year, are you going, are you staying? And that was sort of his space, and I didn't feel it was my place to ever be a bit personal in that area. So he left, and then actually went to Cancun. We were on our way over to see Nick Revell for his wedding, and I think he left, say, 2 or 3 days early. Just walked out, and we ended up spending a week or 2 weeks with him travelling. So it's a weird situation, Chris, and I'm sure you've been through it before, and Mickey, you too, to what it's like for a guy that you've once again done so much with, that then goes to another club, and the dynamics of that and how you interact. But once again, you understand it's the business, and when you're an 18-year-old kid coming in these days, you know what you're in for, and it's professional, and it's a lot of pressure and all that sort of thing. But within that, there's going to be free agency. There's going to be more, I believe, more moving of players from club to club, whether it be via trade or they simply just choose to leave.
And there was a similar situation with Luke Ball in 2009. A grand final that I'm sure will live with you forever in 09, where you could have won, and then again in 2010 when he had moved to Collingwood. And look, I spent an evening with Luke's parents last week actually at the football, and we were talking about that time when Luke was so raw and subdued with his celebration at the end of that grand final in 2010, knowing he'd just come back from Kilda with something else. Absolutely. But again, another player who, a couple of years older than you, but nevertheless, someone you played a lot of football with, leaving and going to another club. It's just part of what happens in today's football, isn't it?
Absolutely. And Bally was a little bit difficult as well, because it wasn't happening a lot back in 2009, end of that year, and we had just come off a loss. I think he does need to be applauded for the way that he did handle himself after the 2010 victory. And I've been one of his best mates for a long time, still keep in contact with him. Went overseas with him last year, so we've got a great relationship anyway. But it is difficult, but within that, the football clubs never stop. They just evolve, and Robert Harvey was at St Kilda for 20 odd years. He leaves at 08, 09, it just starts again, and it's almost like you were never there in that sense that there's 45 guys within the change rooms. One guy doesn't make the biggest difference. Yeah. So, you know, in regards to me, if that is me, the club will keep going. I mean, the club's going to have a difficult year next year in regards to maybe win-loss, but they're building for something, and I understand that.
On the theme of player movement, there's an article in today's Age, Jakey Niles put pen to paper,
yes,
talking about one of the players that I think is super important to your back half is Sam Fisher. Had a frustrating year with injury, an outstanding person, outstanding player. Is there any talk about him possibly leaving?
I didn't know anything about that until today. It doesn't surprise me, because Stephen Silvani, Sauce,
had a great connection.
Yeah, fantastic. They were really tight, and Sauce was a great teacher for Sam. So that wouldn't surprise me that they're interested in him. But by showing interest, it doesn't mean that they're potentially they're going to go anywhere. Sam's had a frustrating year, no doubt about that. From everything from the pre-season where he had a sore foot, tried to manage it, realised that it was getting worse to the point where he had to get surgery, and then he's out for the year. It's been frustrating. I know that he wants to get back. He's got 8 weeks off now for holidays to get his head right, and then he'll hopefully stay at St Kilda. It's one article, and one of the things you learn about football is you read a lot of articles, but it doesn't always come true.
So Nick, just to sum things up, is there a message that you've got to St Kilda fans, or just for footy fans in general, about your current situation? If you had to, in a nutshell, what your circumstances
are? To be honest with you, White, I don't think it's necessarily just about me. I mean, for St Kilda supporters, it's been a tough year, and it may happen again, but I believe that the club's in the right direction. From the young kids that have come through and been given some great opportunities, and how many games do you reckon they say these days to be a bit more solid player consistently? 50, 60, 80,
yeah.
So there's
Jack Stephen in 73's one year.
Absolutely. So you know what, Jack's probably the poster boy for it. From his pre-season and the season that he's had, I think it gives all St Kilda people hope. And I mean, as I said before, I'm only one person, so it's not, the football club is not about me, staying or going. It's about where the club's heading, and I think it is going in the right direction.
All right, we'll get to a break. Coming up, John, with the 8 o'clock news. Nick Dal Santo, our special guest, right through until 8:30, and looking forward to covering plenty of topics after 8 with Nick. It's 2 to 8.